So welcome, Methilde. I'm happy you are here, and I'm getting another opportunity to talk to you after, I think it's been a year. Last time I did an interview about stress, which was very well received with a lot of new information. So today we have an opportunity to catch up again, and the main topic is what I believe and what I've learned from you is probably the main regulatory principle in human energy and health, which is not part of the biochemistry necessarily, but it's happening by volition, consciousness, and what it can actually give us through our attitude to life and attitude to ourselves and attitude to what we are experiencing on this planet. And I think a lot of the psychologists and energetics and counselors all around the world are kind of missing a very, very deep realizations in how powerful this aspect of our well-being is. Can you maybe give your perspective on it with an introduction?
Yes. So the point is, if you are looking at everything as a kind of information, so it's not material, it's not matter, it's information. So even your attitude is information. And all the exchanges we need to calibrate, to be alive, to feel well, needs this kind of energetic exchange. And it's kind of directed by the way how we think about things. So it's, you might have the experience to say, yes, I have this gut feeling, it could be interesting. Yes, then it's interesting, and go for it. So this is the principle. So we have, of course, many, many ideas what's right and what's wrong. And I feel nothing is right or wrong, but things can be appropriate for you or not. And so what I found out, if we say right or wrong, it's very often just a lack of information. And because we don't have enough data, we decide to judge. And so right or wrong makes separation. And putting it into words of energy, everything is connected and everything is a whole. So you have to stand the whole, you have to get the picture, but you don't necessarily need to understand each and every detail right from the beginning, but it will come if you just start your path.
So, what can you give me a practical case where the power of attitude became very clear to you for the first time with a client of yours or other, whether it's chronic disease or other issues they've been experiencing?
Well, the point is, you might remember when we're talking about stress and all the important things around stress. So it's your attitude is the main part how you experience life. So it's about experiencing life, how to be alive. And for example, there's huge research in the 2000s when people try to figure out, does attitude have an impact on genes? And what they found that moms who had disabled children who need a lot of care and need a lot of protection and being around them all the time with disturbed sleep, everything that usually leads to bad consequences in your life for your health. One group was thinking, well, it's a challenge. And the other was, well, this is overwhelming, I can't deal with that. But no matter what they thought about it, they had to deal with the situation. And so the researchers checked on their telomeres, which is just the top of your jeans, and it's to Schnürsenkel.
Shoestrings.
So you can compare it to the tops of your shoestrings, where it's kind of a protection for the gene. So, and the shorter they are, the more likely the gene won't work in the end, which opens doors for disease or for bad feelings.
It's a very reliable measurement for longevity.
Mm-hmm. So the point was, even if the women learned to change their attitude, they learned to think challenge instead of problem. Instead of overwhelming, their telomeres changed. They started being longer again. So this is an amazing example for how attitude helps a lot. On the other hand, so you might experience, you have an examination in front of you, and you are pretty excited, and you think, well, this is difficult. Hopefully I know everything. Everybody knows this experience. And of course you don't know everything, never. And so you just start, and you keep on going. You just answer, and you feel, well, I can deal with that. And even if I don't know everything, I know how to deal with even that. And so this little exception, this, even if I don't know it, I know how to deal with that. This is creating safety in your system. And then all the doors of your subconscious open, and you will find data you might have never found before, because they are there. Your system doesn't forget anything. It's just your consciousness that says, this door's open or it's closed. And this is all belonging to attitude.
Right, so it's kind of on a deep level, it's a feeling that you have options. In this case, you are not pushed against the corner.
So it's not only options, you really literally have the choice. You have the choice how you want to look at the world. And it's a kind of attitude you have to learn. You have to keep on dealing with this new perspective of, I'm an observer. I don't identify with everything that happens. I just see it. I just look at it. And then after 90 seconds, I decide, what do I want to feel or to think about it? So you have to be clear, the first 90 seconds are the time span when your brain is giving you a hormonal cocktail, which is signaling danger. And this is created by evolution because it made sense, it made perfect sense. But nowadays, every new information can cause this feeling of being in danger, because our system has to train, has to change condition. And this is something you have to do on purpose. This won't happen just automatically.
Now, maybe it makes sense to clarify to a lot of our listeners who are less comfortable with the definition of energetic life force units and how important it is to healing, regeneration, tackling chronic disease, and improving performance, even cognitive and physical performance, that there is such a realistic measurement unit like as life force. And in China it's called qi. The old Greeks called it energeia and epsilon. But there's these different old symbols which have not been used in the 20th century. When you look at the increase in the power of the human body to regenerate and come across difficulties, and you compare the difference of being able to manage your attitude in a constructive way, in this way that you suggest, compared to other methods. I know it's not a direct comparison, but can you give an example of what type of magnitude are we talking about here in terms of being able to increase the overall energy of the human body?
So what I feel is, you have to understand energy is just the beginning. Before matter existed, there was only energy. And if you read it in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. And Word is frequency. Word is something that delivers frequency. And so everything that is on Earth, everything that is matter, is calibrated to the energetic field on this Earth. So we have certain conditions we have to deal with. And if we interrupt this calibration by the environmental fields that are naturally made for us via the pineal gland, via our whole body system, all the receptors are made for exchanging energy. And plus this, we have our own field we produce. We call it the vital field. And it's created by the way we are in exchange with the environmental situation. It's created how we eat, how we think, how we move, and everything that happens. So if you put it into quantum mechanics, into words of quantum mechanics, you would say nothing is matter, everything is information. So even matter is not matter, it's information. And this is a total breakthrough. And this is very close to the old traditional books of wisdom we had everywhere in the world, which are older than thousands of years. And now we need the scientific proof to believe it. But to tell the truth, if you open yourself up, you simply can feel it. There are places where you feel, this is perfect. I'm just in the forest, and there are some birds, and I'm just fine. So this is silence. Everything is aligned. Everything is connected. And this is the feeling our whole system, our body system and our mind system, this is what we are looking for. And this is what we really miss in our times, where everything is just, whoa, 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 everything is quick. You can have everything in an instant. You don't have to work for something. It's just there. And it's so different. It's always changing in a second that there's nothing reliable. But nature is reliable, nature is clear. And if you orientate your own system by nature, and if you start relying on your kind of, I know something, I can't put it into words, but I'm clear. There's something that needs my attention.
Yeah, so to maybe try and summarize, it's not just energy, it's the ability to transfer energy between cells and human being and nature. So it's coherence. How coherent are you with the system around you?
I think coherence is a very good word for this, because this is where we all are up to. We all try to reach this state of coherence. Everything is aligned. Everything is clear. No chaotic system. So this is a very old principle we follow.
And probably the best way also to understand the concept of attitude, because attitude is the frequency you select to appreciate or observe the frequencies around you. Could you put it that way?
Yeah, I agree. So if you say, I doubt, I say, if in doubt, leave it out. But the point is, you can't miss energy. It will follow you. So if you're in doubt, you create a different field, you create different resonance, and that might spoil a lot of yourself, which could be perfectly fine if you just open up. So what we learned about how health increases, or what makes us healthy, we call it salutogenesis. It's a 3-pillar system. So one is you have to understand what happens. Second is you have to have an idea that you can deal with it, that you can handle whatever you have to handle. And the third, and this was really surprising for many researchers, is it has to make sense. It doesn't have to be this kind of sense, I know why I do experience this, but the trust to say, I'm sure there is a sense, even if I don't see it now, but I follow the track, There will be a sense, there will be a benefit in the end. And if you follow this attitude, if you just be there, you can survive a lot of dramatic situation without being totally devastated. I mean, look at the people from the Holocaust. You know, I'm German, so I'm pretty close to this information. And we saw that those who survived had totally different health situations if they have these three pillars, like understanding, handable, and making sense. So it was a total different situation in their health, even at age. So it's kind of organizing your whole system, and it's organizing which Gleis?
Track?
Which track you use. So it's kind of, you have different tracks, and of course you can choose which one you want to use. I always recommend choose the one who's open, choose the one that gives you lots of possibilities, and be open for challenge and adventure, because that makes life wonderful.
Right. So it is a very powerful way to modify our relationship with others and life in general. My next question is really when you're dealing with people and you're introducing this aspect of their potential to them, then you're also very often dealing with programmed behavior. First of all, we are living in the modern society. We are living with certain pre-programmed expectations. And one of them, a very interesting one, is the idea of how we age. Aging comes with disease. Aging comes with becoming more tired. Aging comes with slower cognitive functions. Aging comes with Alzheimer's, and these issues start popping up. And it's almost a pre-program, and then you go and you retire, and then you do this and that, and then you die. So you go on this, what you just said, a track or pre-programmed track. And there's so many tracks in modern lives that we are accepting by default. So the great question, the alchemical question is, how do you go about changing these tracks and changing these attitudes? What I've noticed is that some cases where people take that step of really make a difference and change something in themselves, they need a shock effect. They need to land in an ambulance, a close death experience, or crash the car, or lose someone that's close to them. But how do you take this? Is there a way systematically to take it and process it without having a traumatic or shocking experience?
Well, I'm sure we have this option. I agree. We have very often this dramatic changes caused by accidents or other not so nice experiences, to put it carefully into words. What I feel is we have to be examples if we are different. We have to look at other people. So if I'm in my office and I'm seeing all day very old people with dramatic pain, slowness, fatigue, whatever, then it's hard to think, well, age might be fun. But I still agree to it. I think if I'm aging, I have a lot of experience, and it's worth something. If you know how to live, it might be the case that you won't find situations where you don't know anything what to do. You know, the difference is in younger age, you very often experience, well, I have no clue. And this is desperate, of course. And you know, sometimes I have the chance to talk to people at university, and they ask me, so in your age, do you still experience difficulties? And I said, of course. And then they said, whoa, we hoped you would say something different. And then I told them, no, the difference is I know it will be fine in the end, even if I don't know what it means, but I'm sure there will be a solution and I will find a benefit for myself, even if it's not my plan to experience something like that. So the point is, we have examples until we are around 40, and then there's emptiness, there's nothing, because you start being old, you just have to rise up to your children, everything for your career, you have to be finished, otherwise it won't happen. So this is to me, it's just sad, because it's like not celebrating life. It's not, life is a gift, life is a miracle. And the longer I live, and I'm 60 now, so I still look at life like a young girl. I still think, wow, this is wonderful. Look at this wonderful way everything is created. But we have to be aware of the divine nature. We have to be aware of that things are made for something, and that we are part of a pretty huge tribe of people. So we are made for being connected, and the older we are, we tend to disrupt connection. So our whole body system is looking for connection, for contact. It's just looking for, who are you? Can I touch you? Can I smell you? And in times of pandemic situation, we have to learn to do this by digital mechanisms. And it's possible. There's just one thing missing. We don't smell and we don't touch, but we can connect by heart. We can connect by our minds. And then we can go into nature afterwards and kind of repair the missing links and make it whole again.
But you have, if I understand correctly, you have had patients with serious progressive chronic conditions that they've been given 12 months or 6 months,
Yeah,
and have
less.
been able to switch it around. Can you give me an idea of what was required for that to happen?
Well, my favorite example is a man who had a prostate cancer, and it was in the final station. So there have been metastases everywhere. He got chemotherapy, he got radiation, nothing worked. Then he came to me and I gave him IVs, and we did different kinds of treatments, even with energetic information. And after control, we found nothing worked. And then I said, okay, listen, guy, what's the best feeling with all the stuff I do for you? I won't just go on with something that doesn't work. My impression is working with the vital field, working with your spirit is the best thing to do. And he agreed. He said, well, yes, on the vital field, I feel I'm healing. I feel I'm whole. I'm not just a person with problems. And he had at least not more than 6 months, and everybody was sure he would die, and I refused to believe it. I just, this is always the way I just work with my people, even if I know from an expertise that it won't be fine in the end, probably. I decide to work like if everything is possible, because this is one option we always have. So be open for miracles. Sounds poetic, but it's pretty, well, it's science in a way. And so what I learned is that this guy did everything I told him. He changed his mind. He was very much into sport, and he loved to play ball games. And well, from that time when he couldn't even sit without having pain, he is now, 13 years later, still alive, doing sports 3 times a week, is shining, and he says, I'm good. Thanks you, I'm good. And I always answer, no, thanks you, you are good. And so this is the game. So we started something, and none of us knew how this will end. And to me, it was the most beautiful thing when his oncologist said, even if you had followed every advice I would have given to you, you would have never have the life quality you have now. So I say, congrats that you decided not to follow me. Instead of this, follow your own track. So this was the most amazing experience in this case.
Fantastic. Which brings me to another slightly even more esoteric sounding topic. You have this person changing his attitude about his destiny, which is having a clear effect on his ability to regenerate. How much do you think there's a possibility that you, as a beacon in his environment, in his field, had an effect? And how much do you observe that in your patients, that if they are surrounded by positive attitudes, well, I won't say the positive attitude, but let's say attitudes that are productive for their outcomes, and how much that has an effect in addition to the internal attitudes. Is this something that we should be thinking about?
Oh, yes. You know, the most plus hours I work is to organize or reorganize people after having met doctors who tell them, you might be dead in a couple of months. There's no change to be healed. It will be like blah, blah, blah. So they just give them insight how their death will appear to them. And yes, it's important to know it might be that the last lifespan in your life has started. It might be that you don't have enough time. Nobody knows it. So live your life to your fullest extent, no matter how you feel. And the point is, if everybody around you is mistrusty and says, I don't believe it, and she's just blah, 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 so don't trust her. So it's kind of spoiling a possibility we have, and we call it placebo. And what many people don't know, or at least not aware of, is that even an antibiotics or something against a painkiller needs your placebo situation in your brain that causes a huge amount of signaling molecules that help yourself changing everything. So my very old teachers just said to me, no matter what you know, please keep in mind, everything can be different than you expect it to be. So open up the possibility, but don't say, we will make it. Say, it's a possibility. Be prepared. That's how you should go through your life. Be prepared to everything. And this is how you are going into direction of end of life. Be prepared.
Right. And take into account also that you surround yourself with people who are supporting your own decisions in a positive way.
So I feel, to me, it's a challenge. I'm honest, but sometimes people decide to follow a track that I don't agree with. I know the risks, I know what could happen, and then to be clear, just write on my own board and say, okay, if it's your choice, it's your way, and I will accompany you, whatever you do. And this is something that's good for me, and it's very good for them. So we exchange our fields, and we open up possibilities that never have been there before. You know, just using positive mantras like my day is beautiful, my body is fantastic, I'm positive. Well, it's a good impulse for the start, but if you just hold on to this, your brain might notice you are lying. So to put it into a simple sentence, your brain is not stupid. It notices if you don't tell the truth. And this is creating a situation of danger to your brain. And because it likes to help you, it creates a danger cocktail in the signaling molecules. And this means no regeneration or less regeneration, means less energy, means a lot of pondering around with everything instead of I'm centered. I see how it is. And yes, life is not always beautiful, of course not, but still it's life. And so my choice is, if I have a bad day, which I of course have to, I'm getting up and then I say, okay, welcome life. Hello, what's up today? So what shall we do together with this feeling? And then I just, it's the image of I invite my bad feelings for tea, and then I'm listening to them. What do they explain to me? And the funny story is, whenever I start listening, I learn. And then my bad feelings are those who whisper to me about, you should look carefully into another direction. Here's something that you can't change. It's still there, but be aware there might be other options you can have an input to, that you can create something different. It's about how much sense does it make to have an impact for the world, and how much sense does it make to have an impact for my small world, for myself. And this is always be silent, be centered, observe. So this is totally different to, I think, positive. But I say welcome to each and every situation, and I know I find a solution in it. So it's about trust. It's about, yes, we two, my brain and me, we will make it. And it's not, well, everything is positive, ignore the rest. So this is not life, this is not the world. So as I already said, the world is a whole thing. And if you want to understand the whole, you have to look at the whole and not just to one part. Or even decide to not accept several parts. So this is about judgment, this is about separation. So the difference is, if you just say everything is positive, it's possible that you lie to yourself and then your brain doesn't interact with you. And if you say, okay, what's here? What do I see? How can I react? I'm still connected with me. I'm connected even with a bad situation. And then I see, okay, we will survive, because this is the real plan. The plan is to survive.
Yeah. So instead of positive, it's a mindset where you just acknowledge that you are able to deal with the full spectrum, whether it's positive or negative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's being open for everything and say hello to everything, because I'm sure we are able to deal with everything. Some things are more difficult than others, but we have everything we need. And I don't think we experience bad stuff to learn, but whatever might happen, I can use it as a learning experience. Mm-hmm. And so this is the difference.
We have a control of our perception of what happens, but we don't have a control of what happens.
That's true. We only have the control about how we perceive things. And so the Dalai Lama said it perfectly. He said, you can be happy no matter what happens, because luck and happiness is just inside you, and it's totally independent to the world. And I remember when I heard this sentence the first time, I thought, whoa, this is interesting. And maybe I can find something about this insight even in scientific sources. And I found a lot about this kind of, if you are connected with yourself and if you are clear, okay, here am I, and I can only influence how I perceive things and how I don't judge about my situation, but accept and agree, this is how it is now. That helps a lot to find different ways to deal with stress. And it directly leads to the point where, because you have stress, you start to deal better with it. So if you just avoid stress, You're not able to deal with it. You don't know how to because you don't train. There's no training for stress if you avoid stress. And to me, stress is something you need to convince your system that you're still alive.
Right. So my question to you is, how do you teach your patients and clients to train that stress muscle? Because this is key.
Yeah, the key is to change one thing every day. Just to say, I'm just going to the edge, not over the edge, but I just go to the edge, and I'm looking for discomfort once a day. And so the beauty in this is, if you decide, okay, I now go on the edge, I just give me something that's a little bit uncomfortable, then everything changes because you had made your decision. It's not that it happens to you. And this is the best training. So it might be, when have you been the last time under the table? Do you have the experience how it feels being under the table? Or in case you are really angry, you know, this kind of, I want to shout, I want to break something. If you notice you have this feeling, just get up, stand on a stool, and feel how it is to be that big and watching the world from above, and maybe you start laughing. So it's just a training with being crazy and feeling perfect with it.
Also, training the body with various methods, like
Yes,
cold exposure.
Yeah, this is very important to understand. In our society, we tend to be comfortable with everything, and I'm not so much interested into comfortable. It's, you know, learning experience is beside comfortable. And if you just go uphill every day, if you just say, well, I'm doing something with cold impact, I mean, you don't have to do the Siberian stuff, like if you fall into the water, you will be dead, and if you come out of the water, you will be dead too. So this is not the experience I'm looking for, but if you're just using crushed ice and rub it over your arms, if you just feel, wow, cold is, wow, this is amazing. You know, this feeling of being barefoot on the ground, even in winter, just for 1 or 2 seconds. It's a beautiful, beautiful training for your immune system, but it's perfectly for your stress resistance as well. So this is the kind of anti-fragility I'm looking for. Teaching people to do everyday stuff, using it conscious, and looking for discomfort at least once a day. If you want to do more, of course you can do more, but once a day is usually enough.
Right. Talking about I think one of your favorite topics, anti-fragility, and if I lead to this question about anti-fragility, about first of all resistant, there's certain big differences. You measure a lot of people energetically. You use very advanced frequency machines to measure them and see where their weaknesses are. Do you see a pattern in people that are resistant, more resistant, that is somehow connected to a tribal question rather than the individual question? What I mean is there a distribution of people who are naturally more resistant? Or is it always connected to their internal lifestyle and attitude and mental state? What's your gut feeling on that?
I should say it's both ways. So there's one part you always have to do yourself. And my experience is people who have the feeling of having a tribe of people around them, even if it's a tribe by heart, they have more dynamic, energetic systems. So it's kind of reliability to a system that's always there when you lose your track. So I think it's both. And my experience is if people have this connection into a group, let's call it tribe, they feel I'm right here, I'm with the best persons I could choose. I'm here with those who think like I do, and I'm able to discuss something divergent. I mean, it's not important to have always the same opinion, but I can trust you that you won't kill me if I have another opinion. So those people show totally different energetic patterns, and they show much better regeneration ability. They're more resistant.
So what I have understood with the concept of anti-fragile is that it goes beyond resistance, that it is a definition of someone who not is able to counter stressors well, but is actually getting stronger from them. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the invention of the word happened when Nikolai Taleb was looking for the exact opposite to vulnerability. And in expert circles, this should be resistance. And he said, no, this is not the direct opposite. Resistance is the quality, of course. And for resistance, you need something. You desperately need other people. You need people who confirm you are a good one, So you are kind of dependent to something. This is needed for resistance. At least you need to have had once in your lifetime the experience somebody believed in you or somebody trusted you. So the totally different situation is if you are fragile instead of vulnerable, then you can be anti-fragile, which is the total clear opposite by words. And you can say, okay, I'm fragile and I'm anti-fragile at the same time. I know I'm fragile and I know I'm strong and I learn. And this is why I'm basically anti-fragile, because I'm open to learning experience. So this is a difference in the way you judge about the same thing.
You over your 30, 40-year career in frequency and energy medicine, do you see patterns of what type of people reach that limit of being anti-fragile? Do you see a narrative of what leads them to that kind of?
The narrative is they trust in themselves because there's nobody else there. And it's a decision, very often unconsciously. It's the idea, I don't give up. I don't accept this. I'm just here. And let's see what happens, because I'm able to live my life to the fullest extent. And this is kind of an internal quality, and many people just have it, and some have to learn it. And what I experience, those who have to learn it, they very often discuss whether it's a right theory and whether I'm sure that it's worth it. And then I say, yes, because it's an attitude how to say hello to life. It's an attitude to say, okay, I'm made for this. And I'm made for learning. And to me, learning is the antidote against everything.
In your experience, this learning vector of becoming someone who has anti-fragile qualities, is it most often happening in childhood, or have you had people, clients who have made that switch, that shift later in their lives?
Of course, later in life too. I mean, some do it as children, and those are the people when we say, she's born like that. But it's never true. They are not born like that. They had somehow the idea, I should do it like this. And I experienced lots of people who changed their mind by just being in contact with me, by learning through coaching, by dealing with different situations and doing funny little exercises and learning how to trust into themselves. And then the result is, wow, a couple of years ago I would have dealt with this very badly, and now I can go with it. This is interesting. This is, to me, it's a question of being centered. So meditation, contemplation are qualities we can train, and we have to have access to this quality of anti-fragility.
This knowledge and how much it helps you, your health and your overall life quality, isn't it precious for mothers to know also for their children? I remember we were talking about this earlier, about children who have almost, let's say they live in the same village, they have the same traumatic experience in the war or other, and you have some children who are carrying trauma throughout their lives, and it's having a significant impact on their lives. And then there's the other child who has almost identical experience but has turned it into a positive. Tell me about that, and where do you see that trigger difference?
You know, now we are going very slowly into the issue of trauma, which is not only stress or anti-fragile. You know, trauma is something you have to confront. And usually we say, as experts, we say, if you confront it and everybody has the same experience around you, you won't experience trauma. It's just an experience, it's hard, and you survived. And if you have the trauma for yourself and everybody around you is perfect, then we say, this is difficult because it's more than you can bear. And reality, of course, is different than expertise. And so it's, you know, up to the 5th year in your life, you just download everything your parents show you. So you're directly connected to their life experience. This is not only epigenetic, this is even behavior. So if you're living, let's say, in war, and your mom says, well, this is a problem. Hopefully I can get enough food for my children. I have to do a lot of effort to bring the food home, to keep my children safe. Where's the next cellar we can go to if the bombs come? So this is stress. And then the children copy the behavior of the mother. If you have a mother who says, well, okay, this is challenging. We might not have enough food. Okay, everybody has to look for food. You go there. And then we come together and then we cook what we have. And so they try to include everything that happens. So this is a very anti-fragile way to deal with the same situation. And this normally doesn't cause trauma. So trauma is always connected to, it's overwhelming, I don't know how to deal with it. And if you have additionally an example that deals with it the same way, it's hard to be anti-fragile.
Which means that helping your children deal with situations, stressors, resistance, traumatic events in an anti-fragile way is not only helping them deal with trauma or not even becoming traumatized, but also giving them the ability to become anti-fragile themselves.
Yeah, and the point, what you have to do, and might be difficult in our society, is you need to give them discomfort. And this is not very sexy, I know, but it's not giving them pain, of course not, but it's okay, you want to have it, go for it, do something for it. Just learn that nothing comes just by itself. It's always connected with you. And it's not, you did well, I give you something. It's more or less, so for example, when I was a child, I wanted to have a ghetto blaster. And my dad said, you don't need it. So if you want to have it, you have to work for it. And so I was 14 and I was working at a gardener's. And I was working with trees and herbs and potatoes and all that stuff. And I knew every day I was working there, I'm closer to my wish, I'm closer to my target, to the ghetto blaster. And you know, this one I had, I think, at least for 15 years, although I could have had better stuff. It was, you know, I worked for it, it's my energy. And so I had a relation to it. And so this was kind of learning to appreciate something I created, I made possible by my behavior. And learning it's worth it. It's fine. It's not, okay, you want to have it, okay, you get it. This is kind of opening the door to looking for comfort all the time, and don't be aware that life isn't very comfortable most of the time.
Right. Maybe silly question, but do you have a gut feeling, having measured thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people, what part of the population has anti-fragile qualities?
So my gut feeling is not more than 5%. Not in the Western world. So if I'm speaking with natives, if I'm speaking with those who live in nature, it's different. Then I would say 98% have it by nature, because otherwise they won't survive. You know, you can't survive in nature if you're not anti-fragile, because then you would be afraid all the time. You would say, oh, there's a lion, oh, there's a snake, oh, there could be poison somewhere. You know, this is no way to survive. You just have to trust yourself, you have to trust nature, you have to trust everything you're living with. And so in the so-called civilized world, we kind of lose this natural ability to be connected and to trust. And it might sound simple, but we have tons of research to these issues in immunology, which proves how much this impacts your health and your total life experience.
Wow.
If you have too much comfort, you don't learn, you don't train, because it's not necessary. You know, it's very hard in a world where you can have everything in an instant to keep yourself curious, to say, wow, this is amazing. And this is, you know, this kind of naive way to contact everything in your life and admire it and say, okay, I'm here, I see this, I'm thankful. And next step. It's not, okay, I reached this part, now I stop helping myself, now I stop developing myself, now I start receiving everything from state or the people around me, and I stop being active. So then you might have an experience of aging that it's, in my eyes, not really interesting.
Huge difference between nature and civilization, let's say. That's crazy. Final question, Mehtild. These topics they're very intimately connected. Managing your attitude for your own benefit, managing your stress, catching yourself in it and dealing with it, and becoming more aware of your ability to counter these stressors has become more necessary probably today than in the history of this, or in the history of civilization. Might sound like a long time, but we are in a very unique period of time right now. And what I would like to, where I would like to leave this interview is there's a lot of desperate people with out there with low energy, a lot of fears, seeing that they don't understand really what's happening, and the medical procedures, modern medical procedures, haven't exactly been successful or helped people the way they should. And they have to kind of learn a new reality that's very, very stressful and traumatic in very quick order now, coming from a comfortable life to something where you're facing amazing resistance on many levels. What do you, with your experience, what is a life protocol look like for these people? How do you pull yourself out of anxiety, depression, and hopelessness?
Okay, so of course there's no real protocol, but there are certain steps that have to be done. First of all, learn being in presence. So if you're afraid, if you have fears, if you can't trust, it's because you try to be in the future. So if you say it in a line, in the past, you feel the pain. If you look into the past, you see how much pain you had. And if you identify with it, it's more or less the try to change past. And everybody knows it doesn't work. And so if you have fear, then you think too far into the future. So it's here. And because you don't know how future might be, your brain says, well, I don't have enough data. And then it produces different scenarios which are possible concerning to the old data you already have, to the old experiences. And that finally leads to a future that's not good enough, that could be better if you don't look at the old data. And then there's this beautiful, beautiful present moment where you just be there. And to me, it's just a breath. It's just breathing. It's simply walking. It's not taking the route of your always bubbling thoughts. And it's more or less saying, okay, I'm here and I'm myself. That's what I'm made to be. The best I can be is myself. And it's not, I want to be something different. I want to be a person like somebody else. It's, I don't want to be the best person. It's, I just want to be myself. And this is the comfortable part of freedom I can experience, just being myself. And believe me, this is not comfortable with my environmental life, but it's comfortable with me because I know this is who I am and how I am, and I'm in the present. And then I can observe, and the rest is not important. And this is something you have to learn, just doing it every day, which means not identifying with fear, not identifying with drama, not identifying with somebody who tells you you should be different than you are. So it's about your own design. And I think that's what we don't know, what we lost somehow. Everybody should know his or her own design. And this is a little bit of work, but you can reach it.
Is that a different word, purpose, also relevant in this? Finding your purpose in that stressful or chaotic reality.
So it's usually we call it the hero's journey. So it's see yourself in 50 years. What kind of impact will you look back to? What will you have done in your life for other people? So what I learned is everything that keeps you healthy and makes the world a better place is if you follow your own purpose. And it doesn't need to be a huge one. It doesn't need to be, I do the positive global change. Of course not. Okay, if it's your mission, fine. But to say, I'm a loving person and I'm an attentive person, this is what I live, and this is my special contribution. So this is very often enough. So don't go for the big stuff, just go for the things that really fit to you. And then after a while, you might find a bigger purpose.